4. Sorry, Zoe, are you ready to roll? There we go. Okay, everybody, warm welcome to 2024. And for those that are online watching our council meeting this morning, so this is, of course, our Strategic Planning and Policy Committee, first for 2024. First of all, I'd like to ask Bill, would you like to open with a karakia, please?
You want to take it off? Koutou. Whakataka te uru, whakataka te tonga. Ia mā kena kuta, ia mā taratara tai. Te aki ana te atakura, e tio, I huka, I hoa, te he Māori ora. Thanks, Liz.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move into our agenda. So we're calling for apologies that there are none today, but I'll just acknowledge, Claire, I think you've got an early departure from this afternoon's workshops. Are there any disclosures of members' interest this morning? Dale Marie? Okay, so item 8, the incineration plant. Thank you, Dale Marie. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? No, don't need that. Okay, that's all right. All right, we'll move to late items. None? No one's got anything? Fantastic. Then we'll move on to the confirmation of order of the meeting today. And Lou's going to move that. Claire's going to second. All in favour? Thank you, everybody. Now, our minutes, very long ago, 29th of November was our last meeting. So are there any amendments, changes to those minutes? Claire is shaking her head. Roger's happy to move those minutes. Claire's happy to second those minutes. All in favour? Carried. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to our very first item, which is our housing implementation plan, page 16 of our agenda. Kirsty, welcome.
Tēnā koutou katoa, Madam Chair, members of the committee, happy 2024. I would like to present this item on the draft housing implementation plan. This has been prepared in response to a chief executive KPI and has been presented in different iterations to the housing subcommittee. When that subcommittee was first formed, we had a workshop session with Axel Beck, who at that time was the chief executive of the Waikato Housing Initiative, and the elected members present prioritised those projects and initiatives that they wished to progress in the area of housing, with a particular emphasis on providing for affordable housing. You may recall that the council had earlier approved the Waipa plan on a page that replicates what has been prepared by the Waikato Housing Initiative, and the Hamilton City Council seeks to align with those. So that has been reproduced at the beginning of this draft implementation plan. The feedback from the subcommittee members has been responded to and actioned, and the subcommittee members have been provided with a track change version of the plan so that they can see in full transparency those changes that have been made. Since the issue of the agenda, there has been some feedback provided by Councillor Claire St Pierre last night, which highlights some typo issues. I'm quite confident that a number of those relating to spacing have occurred when the document has been designed and then put into Diligent, but the version approved didn't have those, so we will seek to ensure that they are correct. There are some minor wording changes also. So we will be seeking to address those by presenting to you an additional recommendation, which is delegating to me the authority to make final minor editorial changes to the plan. Councillor Claire St Pierre has also questioned about that project initiative relating to Plan Change 26. You're probably aware that whilst there have been statements made about the housing supply and other enabling matters legislative change to the Resource Management Act and that becoming discretionary. At this point in time, there has been no repeal of that legislation. The only legislation that has been repealed to date has been the Natural Built Environments Act and the Spatial Planning Act. So at this point in time, we have no legislative change. We have no change to the resolution of council. Staff are working through options in collaboration with our neighbouring local authority partners, and my understanding is that they will be seeking to re-engage with you as to a suggested way forward. So at this point in time, there is there are notations reflected in the draft plan to that effect. There is some feedback that has been provided by members of the planning and building teams subsequent to the issue of the agenda also. Those issues will be addressed as we seek to give effect to the implementation plan. They don't require substantive change to what is presented to you today. Just a final point to make before I am available to respond to questions. It is intended that this plan is a live plan. It's not set in stone. I think that's really an important point to make because our environment is constantly changing. And we are progressing with a number of initiatives. You'll see we've highlighted those that are underway and those that are still subject to resourcing and are not yet, have not yet been activated. So it is intended that we will be reporting back through the Housing Subcommittee and back through this committee as we need to revise that plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsty. Look, I know that a huge amount of work has gone into this to date. So just first of all, my thanks to staff, but also to actually my fellow members on the Housing Subcommittee. It's really pleasing to see this work sort of come to fruition and that we're at the sort of implementation point, and we've got what I think are 8 priority actions that are very, very relevant to Waipa at this present stage. So my thanks. So I open the floor for questions, and Roger.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Kirsty. And as part of the housing group, obviously, very supportive of this plan going forward. A couple of questions, one in general, and that plan change that we're referring to, which there's been a joint authority hearing in Hamilton by an independent commissioner. My understanding was that we're still awaiting his decision on that. I mean, it's been a while already. It's been a couple of months, if my memory of the hearing serves me correctly. When are we likely to get that? Because that does have major implications. And then, am I correct in saying that whatever he comes out with has still got to come back to us for ratification? That's my first question. I do have another one.
Through you, Madam Chair, I don't profess to be an authority in this area, but my understanding is that the work that is being undertaken by staff and working in collaboration with the partner councils is working through that process. What options are available in terms of receiving the commissioner decision and then giving effect to that. My understanding is that Waikato District Council have applied for an extension of time frame, and that is one of the options that might be considered for Waipa. So I can't give you a definitive response in terms of time frame for providing that decision. That is what part of the optioneering that is underway currently. But what I will do is ask that Wayne Allen, as Group Manager for that area, provide you with an update on that.
Thank you, Kirsty.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kirsty. That would be really good. The second, and I did raise this when we talked about it at the housing group, is again, I'm frustrated at the delay in several parties to this housing initiative getting together and coming up with a definition for affordability of housing or housing affordability. And even in the temporary state, affecting an international definition that's there that actually would add some form of information and clarity to some of the direction that we're taking with this housing initiative. So please, either can we accept what is there as a definition to begin with, and then look to put pressure on Future Proof to come up with that definition? Because again, I think we need that to give clarity to what we want to see going forward.
Through you, Madam Chair, members of the Housing Subcommittee are aware that through the Future Proof Partnership, we have engaged Brad Olsen and the Infometrics team to provide us with some external support in terms of the data and methodology for determining affordable housing, looking at a future-proof sub-regional approach, but also then what that means at a district level and also within districts. So we have in the last week received a draft response to phase 1 work, which was around the metrics. And that has been shared with staff at our Future Proof partner councils. We're inviting their feedback, and then once we've got agreement, we will be looking at feeding back to our councils and to Future Proof. The second stage of work is the methodology, and that there have been funding commitments from the Future Proof partners to proceed with that. So acknowledge the frustration around timing delays. There have been some delays in getting the input from partner councils and also in terms of Infometrics. You're aware also most likely that Axel Beck from Waikato Housing Initiative was strongly promoting this, and he has now left that organisation, though still acting with an interest in the affordable housing space. So we are proposing that we will bring back to the Housing Subcommittee the work that has been shared with us at this point, even if it is only in draft form, but acknowledge that within the Future Proof strategy and the work that's been undertaken on the future development strategy, there is, I guess, an interim guidance that is provided within that strategy documentation that could feed into this if required. Yeah, thank you.
My final point is actually just a comment, and I bring your attention to page 25 of our agenda. You all get a chance to have a look at that page, and there on the bottom of that page is a beautiful photograph showing Cambridge in all its glory and the amount of greenery and trees that we have in our town. So I hope you can all see that, having pointed you to the correct page.
Thank you, Roger. Okay, are there any other questions? Claire?
Yeah, thanks. And thanks for covering off those things that I've already raised. I just wanted to check with you about it's kind of like an ambiguous comment on page 33. It's priority action 7. Council will investigate funding options for the provision of infrastructure to provide for a range of housing types. And the first point A is that we'll support the housing initiative to advocate for a regional program of funding. And my query was like, not too sure where that funding is coming from. I mean, perhaps it hasn't actually been clarified anyway with the discussions with the various parties anyway, but I just thought it's a little bit too ambiguous as to where that funding might be intended to come from, whether it's from the councils involved or if it's from central government, or yeah, I'm not sure.
Through you, Madam Chair, I think it is certainly the intention was that we would be advocating at a central government level, but I can provide that clarification within the wording. Thank you.
That'd be great. And then the last point was in the glossary on page 35 about inclusionary zoning, like the definition of it, or well, actually, I suppose it's a glossary, so it's not a definition. It just says that the the district plan would require developers to provide a certain percentage of new residential dwellings to be offered as affordable housing. However, the inclusionary zoning definition isn't limited usually to that. It's broader, you know, because the examples that I've seen, the developer has the option of making a monetary contribution or providing the land and ensuring, or, you know, making sure someone else builds the houses, you know, like, it's not that the developer themselves has to get those houses built. Yeah.
So through you, Madam Chair, that that definition has been taken from our organisational material, but I can follow up with the planning team and ask for some suggested alternative wording to reflect that.
Yeah, I prefer the broader term because I think, you know, there's probably going to be concerns by developers about what expectations there might be on them if we do go down that track, and I appreciate that we still haven't quite committed to that. So by having a broader definition, I think people can see, oh, you know, there's different ways of doing it. Yeah, and you can find what works for you best, I guess. Thank you, that's all. And just congratulations, it's looking really great and I'm pretty excited to see it getting to this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Are there any other comments? What we might do then is just pop the recommendation, amended recommendation up on the screen to enable Kirsty just to look at any sort of minor typographical changes. Is everyone happy with that? I'm mindful too of just some of the comments, Claire, that you've made around, yeah, some other possible changes. So Kirsty, perhaps if you can circulate an email once we've had that information.
Yes, I'm just mindful, Joe, that actually the resolution C that you've deleted actually could have been utilised to address the specific issues that Councillor Clare raised relating to the regional housing program on page 33 of the agenda, and including a reference to central government funding and the definition for inclusionary zoning on page 35 of the agenda. That would be my preference. And then the minor issues that you've raised regarding spacing and you know, typos, I think fit within the new recommendation, which relates to minor editorial changes.
Okay, I'm happy with that. Is everyone happy with those two? That recommendation C includes those two additions? Yep, and look, Claire's happy to move. I think Philip's happy to.
Yeah, I just need to help Joe with it.
Absolutely. Okay, let's just take a 2-minute break and we will just put the new resolution up on the screen just to include those 2 extra items. Just for completeness and accuracy. All right, everybody, we've got our amended resolutions up on the screen. So just to include, so I'll let you read it for yourselves. If everyone's happy, we'll ask for a mover and a seconder.
Excuse me, but the affordable housing, I think it's inclusionary zoning definition. Yeah. Yeah, thanks.
A, B, and C. Okay. Okay, I believe that that's now correct. Claire, would you like to move
Yeah.
that? And Philip, are you still happy to second? Okay. We've got, oh, sorry, no, Monty? No, okay.
Just discussing that, that definition in the glossary. Excuse me, sorry, what page was it again?
35. I think.
35. Look, partly why I was really happy with to support this was because it was a pretty general, particularly the inclusionary zoning bit. But if we start getting specific, I'm getting slightly less comfortable here. Like these are quite controversial matters, and if they just get slipped into a glossary definition, I'm just concerned that it's in sort of an unwitting way of sliding them in. I'd actually be happier with just a broad definition of what inclusionary zoning might be like at sort of a high level. Inclusionary zoning means that you know, there's provision for a variety of housing types or whatever. Okay, so general, I'm cool with. Once we start getting specific in a glossary, inadequately debated, I'm not.
Madam Chair, I wonder if we can amend it that that I revisit the definition with the planning team to just to ensure that, you know, there's a consistency with what's intended.
Yeah, we
here.
don't want any unintended consequences here. And I think I probably would prefer to get that planning advice. I think, Kirsty, that's really good advice at this point in time.
So is that prior to ratifying this?
So we're just going to change the recommendation, I believe, to ensure that we've taken on board Monty's comments to keep it just a little bit more broader until we could get that planning advice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you happy with that, Claire?
Well, yeah, I am. I mean, it could be achieved by just removing the second sentence in that definition. However, I just wanted to point out that what I was trying to do was broaden the scope of what inclusionary zoning means compared to what's in there, which is just that to provide a certain percentage of new residential dwellings, which sounds like the developer is required to actually get them built himself or themselves. Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm happy to get it checked.
We could accommodate what we're both trying to say just by having a general definition of what inclusionary zoning is. You'd be happy with that, wouldn't you, Claire? Yeah, and I would be too. We could probably almost come up with that now because it'd be relatively general, wouldn't it?
If you just look at this, the wording and take away the second sentence, it would do it. Yeah. Because it just talks about incentivizing or requiring, and it doesn't say what it might be, how it might be done.
Agreed, that would work for me. Yeah.
Okay, so Kirsty, I believe that Councillor Montgomery and St Pierre have agreed that the removal of the second sentence would actually keep them both happy. Yeah.
Notwithstanding that, I will still follow up with the planning team to ensure that what is, because they've seen this, so I'll ensure that what is now presented as amended, you know, there's no fatal flaws with. I don't anticipate that, and I will loop back with all elected members to close that with you.
So are you still happy that we proceed with this resolution?
I'm happy with what's now captured with that removal of the second sentence. Yeah.
Okay, removal of the second sentence. I'm not seeing any disagreement around the table, so Claire was happy to move. Philip's still happy to second. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thanks, everybody. Okay, we'll move on to our next item, which is the approval of supporting documents for Ahuaki, the Waipas Community Spatial Plan. So, Vanessa, good morning. Happy 2024 to you. So we are now on page 36, looking to approve the supporting documents in this item.
Morena koutou, everyone. Happy New Year. I know it's a little bit late in the year already, but I haven't seen any of you yet. Here we are, almost towards the end of Hahuake, 4 years in the making. We are providing you with a first set of supporting documents, which would be part of a package which will be presented to the committee when we go to consultation in alignment with the LTP in the next few months. Hopefully, this package is a set of documents which is documenting and recording the development of Ahuaki so far. So in that package, we had the scenario development report, we had the scenario refinement report, and we had the engagement summary report. Noting that that last document, the engagement summary report, will be amended following the special consultative procedure once it is actually completed, and we have actually addressed the submission received during the particular phase. So I am going to take the report as read and will be answering any of your questions.
Thank you, Vanessa. Okay, questions. We will start with Roger.
Yes, mine is a question of availability on these reports. When we get them within Diligent, they're actually embedded and you can't really print them off or save them separately. Are these reports available through our website, or are they available in a form where we can download them individually?
Yeah, they wouldn't be available online at this stage because they need to actually go through the approval process before putting them to the public. But they are on ECM. I'm not really sure about the systems.
Through you, Madam Chair, we can make them, we can either make them available in Diligent, but we can also make them available to you by email.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be better by email because I just have a difficulty downloading from.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah.
Sometimes I like to have a little time over a particular document. Yeah, so that would be good.
No problem.
Thanks.
Monty.
Yeah, just if you could flesh out the amendments made after the quality assurance reviewer Ian Munro's comments, just be interested to have a little bit more than you've given us of the changes that were made.
Yes, so I followed up to all the BCG members who reviewed that document back in October. And I mentioned in my
Sorry, Vanessa, can you just push a button? Thank you. Yeah.
As I mentioned in my email, Ian Munro, who is our independent reviewer, who has actually a breadth of expertise and knowledge in that particular kind of spatial planning kind of discipline, had pointed out that it would be worthwhile to kind of understand the fallout of the costing review, which are done actually by the staff during the assessment of those 5 scenarios. So within the document itself, would you like me to point out where those changes were made or why they were made, or general making? So for each scenario in the document, so I'm actually referring to the scenario development report, and within each scenario, 2 sections were added. One relating to the scenario cost review, and one added to the risk in implementing the scenario itself. So the scenario cost review was narrative, if you like, of the staff opinion, the staff cost opinion, which had been done during the assessment, and we actually kind of narrated where the calculation had been made and how those calculations were actually made, which weren't actually completely documented in the previous document, the one that you had review on the 24th of October as part of a project control group. And the second part was who pays for the infrastructure. So again, as noting, it's a general caveat, but needed to kind of be added as to who would be actually paying for that infrastructure, noting is transportation, community facilities, and the three waters in that particular scenarios as well. So it's a general caveat to kind of get the committee to understand that it wasn't actually directed straight away into a ratepayers kind of process, but rather through landowners and developers, and that those infrastructure payment will be actually part of a overall kind of council process. The last section that was added within each of a scenario was the risk in implementing that particular scenario. And that's also on the back of, if you recall, the multi-criteria assessment. So we had actually scored each scenarios, and here is actually a narration of when the scenario scored negatively or equally to scenario one, which is the status quo one. So it's just a little bit more of narration around what are the underlying expectation of payment, who is paying for that infrastructure, which is leading to the staff cost opinion that was actually provided during the assessment of the scenarios, and then on the back by MCA and the scoring narration as well. So it was information that was already out there, and I suppose we're just really laying out the explanation here with the added section. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Happy? Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this item? No? Okay. So we've got our recommendation A, B, and C on page 37. I've got a move and a second, please. Thank you, Philip. Thank you, Andrew. All in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, thank you, ladies. All right, we'll move on to our next item, which is the resource consent call-in request. No. Sorry, Dale Marie. Is Wendy coming into this? Let's just take a 2-minute breather, everybody, while we wait for our staff member to arrive. Bill, are you going to register to? Where are you walking away? meeting, please?
27th of March.
Okay, everybody, welcome back. So we are on the item resource consent call-in request. Now, we've also got Bill Harris, who would like to express a conflict of interest on this matter. So he has now subsequently left the room, as well as Dale Marie. Okay, now I'd like to welcome Wendy to speak to this item. Over to you.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you very much for your time. So I'll take the report as read and just quickly state that obviously we're here today because Waikato Regional Council have requested the Minister call in their consents for the same development. So their air discharge and, oh, I shouldn't have said something else, some other discharge. Our obviously consent is to build and operate the waste to energy plant, waste incineration plant. So they have made their call in because following the legislation, because it's considering the greenhouse gas effects on climate change to be of national significance, and the technology used being of national significance because it's unknown, mostly in New Zealand. I have made my recommendation based slightly differently, being that it doesn't make sense to have two hearing processes at the same time. So we want to make sure that the decision-making process is clear, consistent, and easy as possible for our community to participate and navigate. So I can expand on the reasons the Regional Council have made their call-in request, because it is slightly based on the legislation and changes in legislation. They were unable to consider greenhouse gas effects on climate change based on the narrow timings of when their application was received to when the legislation was repealed within the same month, but unhelpfully on the wrong side of those dates. So they would be unable to consider those effects, whereas the Minister, through a Board of Inquiry process or through the Environment Court, would be able to consider that. And they obviously had a number of submissions about greenhouse gas emissions. I have one point of clarification from my report, and that was that I mentioned that the applicant does not support a call-in request, and they'd like it to be clarified and stated on the record that they don't have an opinion on that. So they must be in further thinkings on the position. Yeah, I'll leave it at that if anyone has any questions.
Thank you, Wendy. Obviously, this is a very contentious issue. Roger.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Wendy. Probably this is my perception rather than a question. But if if the hearing was held here with our commissioners, it is likely that whichever way it went, there would be an objection that would be taken further and would be taken to the Environment Court anyway. So if we were to put ours or ask for ours to be taken forward, surely that is just assuming what the natural process would be, that it would be considered on a national basis anyway.
So I think if a hearing, if the decision progressed as it is at the moment through independent hearing commissioners, then obviously, and that was to be declined, then the applicant would be able to appeal that to Environment Court. If it was approved, obviously anyone who submitted would be able to appeal to the Environment Court. So you're correct that if it did go straight through to Environment Court, I actually don't know the answer to that. I guess the question is, would it mean that there isn't the lengthy and costly appeal process?
I'm not sure that we really want to speculate on what might happen with the process.
I mean, I still think that because both sides to the argument are very strong in their feelings, that it would probably result in an objection to be taken.
So possibly, but I think we'll just leave that there. But based on the paper that's presented in front of us, are there any other questions around this? Is everyone happy with and comfortable with the resolution? So we've got Andrew and then Susan.
Well, I'm definitely in favour of the motion, the recommendation And it just seems to me this is a really technical, new to New Zealand largely, and to bring the greatest amount of expertise possible to bearing makes sense. So, yeah.
We're happy with that. Thank you. Susan and then Lou.
Yeah, look, I'm happy to move this recommendation, just noting also that Wayne's letter makes reference to that when we met with the applicant in December, they did not agree to request a call-in. So let's just make sure that we're not misrepresenting their position. If they were agnostic, then I think it's only fair we give them that opportunity to be stated as such. Look, I've received a huge number of letters from people, both in the earlier stages and more subsequently, asking us to originally decline. Of course, we all know technically around that issue, that's not a possibility, but then more recently around people asking for a call-in. So this is in step with what I understand our community wants us to do. So I think that's really important that we support that feeling out there, and noting the only slight hesitation from my position is that in making this decision move from a local kind of area, there may be the perception that it's inaccessible for opponents to have their voice heard. But I guess I'm slightly reassured that that won't be the case, because they certainly seem to be a very well organised group, and they are not likely to sit back and not have their voices heard, if you like. So look, I'm really comfortable with this recommendation, and great report, and thank you for your work, Wendy, on that one.
Thank you.
Sorry,
and
Lou
to-
and then Claire.
I'm totally in support of this, and as I say, I recognise the fact that we don't want to have two hearings. That would confuse the issue, I think, quite a lot. Having one hearing where everybody can give evidence and all of the adjudication is carried out by that one panel or by the minister's delegation. I think that is vitally important, because in an issue like this with so many variables, it could be quite easy to have a local commission actually being challenged on technicalities, which could make us go out for a long period. So I'm totally in support of what you've written, and would like to second, if you've moved it, Madam Susan, I'll second your motion very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Lou. And Claire?
Yes, I also support the recommendation. I just wanted to pick up on what Mayor Susan was saying about not wanting to create the impression that the process, if it is adopted as a call-in, that it's going to be harder for locals to participate. Like it's made clear in Wayne's letter that there is the option to be held locally, and I don't know if that could be strengthened, that we would recommend, or we'd really support that it would make it more accessible for our locals to participate. That's all. Yeah, because I think that was a really good point.
Yeah, Claire, I think that's an excellent suggestion, actually, and I think that's probably the only little wee concern that I'd had as well, was that, you know, there will be we know there's strong interest, and I think the locals you would like to feel that they are part of the process. So if it could be held here, we could offer up our chambers potentially. Yeah, so Wendy, if you could follow that up with Wayne, I think that would be really, really good. All right, I think everyone has had a say on this matter. So we already have a mover with Mayor Susan, and Lou has wanted to second that resolution. So all in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you, everybody. All right, we are going to break for morning tea.
Do you want to do closing karaoke?
We are going to do a closing karakia before we close. So we're going to get... I could delegate this to my deputy, actually, the closing karakia. All right.
Oh, no, that is unfair. Make preparation time.
All right. So we are ahead of schedule. So we will return at 10:15, and our next item is going to be the Public Places Alcohol Control Bylaw presentation as our very first workshop for today. So we'll just wait for our closing karakia, and then we will break for morning tea. All righty, so we're just going to close the meeting. We just want to close the karakia, then we'll break for morning tea. Bill, are you happy with that? Sorry to put you on the spot. We have workshops this afternoon. Is your button turned on? Thank you.
Kei no tātou. Te ata whai o tātou ariki. Kingi te hautia, te pautau te whero. Me te aroa tātua, i o karaiti me te whiwhinga tahitanga te wairua tapu, ake, amene.
Kia ora, Bill.
a start, please, on our first workshop for the day, which is our public places alcohol control bylaw. So we'll hand that straight over to you, Mika.
Kia ora. Thanks, Liz. So today we're going to talk about the public places alcohol control bylaw. So any other alcohol related things that we've already talked about, forget that. Okay, this is different. So this bylaw mainly deals with dispensations, permanent alcohol ban areas, temporary alcohol ban areas, and exclusions to those permanent alcohol ban areas. It mainly boils down to the alcohol ban areas. So that's what we are going to discuss today. So in front of you, you should have a couple of maps. If you could all please, I guess any questions from the report that was with this? I take the report as read. No questions? Pretty straightforward. Okay. So the Te Aomuru map in front of you can see the current alcohol ban area is indicated in a red dashed line. So hopefully you can all kind of see that. A little bit difficult to see. But that is the current ban that's in place. Basically, we're going to step through each place and ask if there is any recommendations that you feel should maybe be included, get excluded from that permanent ban area. This has already been to the community board, so there is a little bit of feedback from them, not for Te Aomuru, but for some of the other places. So Te Aomuru basically proposed to stay as is. Any feedback on that?
Thank you for that. Okay, so let's start. We're starting with the Te Aomuru map. Any feedback? Damarie.
Tēnā koe ua. Just out of curiosity, because I see that the college and the full immersion school back on Factory Road, there hasn't been any consideration to include around by the schools a bit more.
Good point. I should probably clarify just a little bit. So with places like schools, this ban relates to public places. So schools don't quite fall into that boundary. That was actually something that was talked about quite a lot at the Te Aomuru Community Board. And yeah, it was decided that it's probably not really a benefit to extending it there, just because it might catch the roads around the school. But that's about it. It won't catch any of the school grounds.
Sorry, one more. Mike, do you guys have just as a question, do you fellas have any influence around possibly any of that kind of banning or in your area for Cambridge or Leamington? Nah, none of yous are included in that? Okay.
Didn't I understand when we were talking to the Te Aomuru Community Board that schools have their own policies regarding alcohol?
Yeah.
Or something like that?
Yeah, council just can't, schools will have their own things in place, yeah, but council can't influence.
Yeah, I think we largely acknowledge the Ministry of Education have that covered as ministry land. Yeah.
I guess a little bit supplementary to that is Otafo Marae, though. I know it's on education land, but it's a public facility. So the council has no say in regards to Otafo. Is that what I'm hearing? But it was built as a community marae.
Thank you, Bill.
For this community.
Yeah, look, I mean, in terms of any alcohol that's on ministry grounds or schools, etc., you have to apply for a license like anyone else. So you're just like anyone else. Either gets approved or not. You meet the requirements or you don't.
Happy with that?
Marcus?
The only other thing is at the top left-hand corner, where at the borders Racecourse Road, is that there's the Montefiore Reserve sort of carries on to that triangle of land, those trees. So you've got,
Sorry, Marcus, do you want to come up here with my pointy stick?
no, that stick's giving me PTSD actually. I think I'll just point.
You can probably
Good Lord, there
reach.
is a stick. Okay.
Yeah. But that's reserved, that's the part of the, yeah, it's cycle wetlands.
Sorry, so would you like to
Well,
include?
this is all one reserve. And
Yes.
then the path goes through here, it's through to here, so it's part of this.
Yeah.
Walkway and tracks.
Okay, I think it makes sense to include that, given.
So yeah, I guess that also raises a good point. You will see that a lot of these boundaries follow roads, and that is also just out of ease of management. So that's possibly why that little bit is not currently in there.
Yeah.
But good point. Take that on board. So you'll see, especially with Leamington, there's lots of extra roads included there. Excellent. Are we happy with Te Amuru?
Absolutely. Should we move on to Kiki?
So with Kihiki, there was a suggestion from the community board to include, take my sticker with me, the roads up in the north, so extend the alcohol ban area along Mill, Herbert and Leslie streets. So make a nice little extra bit in there.
Okay, I think if the community board have suggested that, and given the growth that we've seen in Kiki, are there any alternative views to incorporating? Marcus, you want to say?
I don't really see that as a trouble area, really. It doesn't really bother me if it's in or out. I think that the hatched bit that's there at the moment is I think that's fine.
You're comfortable either way? Okay, Philip?
Well, that's,
Yeah,
that's
thanks.
the old Alpha Hotel.
Yeah.
And that's the liquor outlet there. Okay.
So you wanting to include it up to Herbert?
Yeah,
The reasoning behind that was to sort of catch the park there and a sort of a little bit of a commercial area, which is not
Would it
It's up
warrant?
by the Alpha Hotel.
Yeah, yeah, it's by the
You're
Alpha
talking what used to be the Alpha Hotel and the liquor outlet there.
Would it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
And there's
go on what Marcus.
Would you
sort of-
include the church and the Women's Refuge League and all of that in there as well?
again, it would sort of just catch more
that's
the
on the other side of the
surrounding
road.
areas, yeah.
Okay.
And the reason it has to be such a big block is, again, to make it easy to mark. So you know, once you cross that road, then you're in the ban.
I think we've gone your guidance and Marcus's guidance, really.
Well, Marcus didn't have any guidance. He was happy either way. So but the suggestion has come from the Te Amutu Community Board. Let's take their suggestion unless there's any massive opposition to that. So I think I see lots of people nodding, so we'll include that. Right, we're on to Cambridge.
Sorry,
Yeah,
good
just pop your
question from
microphone on.
Bill.
I was just trying to check, you know, when you say it was agreed to by the Te Amutu Community Board, which is the Te Amutu Kiki Community Board, did the Kiki ratepayers agree to it?
So all the information that getting feedback on today is going into the draft, and then the draft will go out for public consultation. And that's when the ratepayers will have their chance to have a say.
Yeah, this is just the start of the process, Bill. So we're just going to our elected members to begin with, and then it'll go out for public consultation, as Mika said. So there'll be plenty of opportunity for people to make amendments should they want to see some changes.
Didn't quite answer my question, which was, it came from the Te Amutu Community Board, did the Kiki ratepayers have a
But
say in
what do you
that.
mean by
No, they
key
have
ratepayers?
There's a key ratepayers community group.
We're not, the draft consultation document will go to
I understand that.
residents,
Yeah.
and that community group is a resident. They are not an elected group. They're not elected members. At the moment, it's our Te Amuru Kiki Community Board elected members and councillors who are feeding into this process.
Thanks for identifying the difference.
It's all right. Okay.
Excellent. So shall we, everyone happy with Kihiki?
Yep.
Move on to Cambridge.
Well, let's just let Mika introduce it first and then we'll take questions.
Sorry, yes, so Cambridge, same deal. The Cambridge Community Board suggested possibly including Carter's Flat and what you already see there.
Yeah.
But yeah, the boundaries you currently see are what's currently part of the alcohol ban area. Roger.
Thank you, Mika. Yep, Roger.
Yeah, there are in Cambridge exempt buildings, one being the town hall and Wilson Street, and there's another one, can't remember which one it is. But listening to the new group in the trust in the town hall, they're really wanting to activate the piazza. So will the piazza become part of their exemption, or will that be separate?
Sorry, I'm not a Cambridge resident. Is the piazza outside the town hall?
The piazza is the area immediately outside,
Yeah.
like it's the town hall.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, it would. Yes, it would.
Because it's currently not.
No, the Cambridge Town Hall itself
Yeah.
is part of the exclusion, and the kaipaki room in the Cambridge council offices. And it doesn't necessarily mean those buildings, you can't, you have to still get a dispensation to have alcohol in there, but this ban basically is to capture you carrying your alcohol from your vehicle to wherever you're going. So it's more directed at the outside areas. So what you're describing is false. It's already part of it.
Because I've separate.
Okay, so at the moment, piazza, as I understand it, is part of the public places.
Exemption. Sorry, coverage.
It is included. So you cannot bring, and you cannot have a party, or you cannot bring your alcohol there. And that is my personal view, is that it needs to stay like that until the Town Hall Trust makes an application to make any changes. Because otherwise we would simply be opening it up for anyone to drink there at any time. And I don't think the trust wants that either. So what should happen is that there be a conversation between the trust and our liquor licensing group to make provision for anything that they may want to change.
I think in future it needs to be more of a formal arrangement
Exactly.
as to how they activate that space, rather than having to go through a process each and every time to gain that exemption. But if you say that that will be addressed when the Town Hall Trust
Applies for their on license.
is ready to go to that direction.
Yeah, I think that's
Okay.
the appropriate time to address that
Yeah,
particular
okay.
matter.
Yeah.
Because there'd be a number of controls that we would want to see for our community around that very public place as well.
I'll just explain. So currently the process, if you did want to have an event inside one of these alcohol ban areas, you can apply for a dispensation, and that'll allow you, well, depending on the conditions, allow you to be excluded from the alcohol ban area for that time specified in the dispensation. Or if you have a regular event, as currently happens with some places around the district, you can apply for that temporary ban to, shift if you know there's regular timings around things.
Thank you, Mika. Look, I was pretty happy with this map overall. Obviously, we're going to be addressing Leamington in a separate map shortly. Philip.
Thank you. On the sort of western side, which is of Cambridge Dick Street up to there, perhaps up to Bryce Street, so Hamilton Road, Bryce Street, Duke Street.
Would you like to go point at the map on the screen with your
Sure.
tall hands?
Duke Street, yeah, so, where's Hamilton Road? Right there, this area. What about Eton School? What's
Yeah.
schools again?
So what public land is there, Philip, that we wanted to include?
Well, it's not so much public land, but you've got retirement homes, things up there.
Yeah, but that's all privately owned. We're only doing public.
Part of the cycle track down through Bryce Street. If there's any thought about including that area.
Any thoughts on including the area?
So Hamilton Road, down Bryce to Duke. So Hamilton Road to Bryce, all the way down Bryce to Duke, just to pushing it out. Just around the school, the retirement home, particularly on Hamilton Road, Bryce Street corner. No? Okay.
While we've got it there now, while we're talking about it, just sort of bring it up.
I'm not seeing a lot of support for it.
Okay,
Unless,
right.
is
Okay,
there
that's
support for
fine.
it?
I'm
It's
just
fine.
challenged to understand the
No
benefit
problems.
from doing so. And I'm just mindful also that I understand the Cambridge Community Board spent a long time going through all of this. So sort of suspect their intel is pretty reliable around the actual specific roads, and not diminishing obviously Philip's input, but I'm struggling to understand where the public land is in that section that would get any benefit from including.
Any opposing views, Mike?
No, through the chair, I agree with that. I mean, the only public land will be this new cycle track. But until you've got an issue, we haven't. So I'm happy with status quo too. So the state of Carter's Flat, are we looking at including that?
So Mika, the map, you wanted to include Carter's Flats. I'm guessing that you haven't included it yet, or?
No, sorry,
Yeah.
all the maps you see today is just as it currently is. So
Yeah, so-
I haven't added or subtracted anything.
Can you show us the line that if we included Carter's Flat, can you show us where that would?
So it's basically on
encompass?
the right-hand side of the map, there's a big grey, it looks quite grey on this map.
Is it the entire grey area? All the way back to the stream?
Madam Chair, I'd be interested in trying to capture the reserve as well. That sort of to the east of Carter's Flat, because that's probably where people might be tempted to go with the alcohol as well. So, yeah, well, because there might not be access at the moment, but I thought that the concept plan or the structure plan is going to make it a lot more accessible to get down to the stream.
I mean, the stream, the thing you just need to keep in mind is that you need some sort of boundary, and the stream is like a nice boundary. So you could definitely go to the stream.
Yeah.
Right, so there's a blue line on our map. So I suggest we just make that the area to be included.
That straight blue line, is it?
No, the curvy one following the stream.
Oh, sorry, I'm looking at the printout. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, so just with
Not
this as
one.
well,
No,
you
that
know,
one. Yeah,
I'll
there's
come back
there's the blue
with
line there, you see.
more defined maps as
Yeah.
well. So this is just a rough
This
guideline.
is the starting point.
Yeah.
Okay, no, that looks good. So, yeah, I think we've, okay, Susan.
Hey, I'm going to sound like a real fool here, but just trying to understand the rationale here. We kind of localize, we're making this focused on CBDs, and that, I guess to an extent that makes sort of sense, but as a public places bylaw, shouldn't we be focusing on our public places, like our reserves and our parks? And they're not all in CBDs.
We are coming to that.
Oh, okay, but that's cool. So with that said, I don't understand the rationale behind extending it to Carter's Flat, because that's all beyond the roads, privately owned. I don't understand the rationale. I don't know what, I feel like we're trying to fix a problem that actually isn't there. appreciating we do need public places alcohol bans on parks and reserves and piazzas and all that, totally behind that. But I sort of feel like this is just sort of without any real reasoning. Or am I missing something?
For this particular area, what comes into play is this bylaw lasts 10 years. So this is trying to, I think that's where the community board comes from as well, is doing that future thinking of, is this bylaw, like if that Carter's Flat area does expand and mixed use perhaps, then.
Yeah, so I guess what we're trying to say,
captures
Mika,
that.
is we're accommodating for growth. So Carter's Flat, we've gone through our plan change, and it's like, hopefully we're looking to see an extension of the CBD going forward over the next 10 years. And there could be some public areas sort of formed as time goes on, especially with some of the developers that are looking to set up some new areas.
Okay, I appreciate that now in terms of the potential creation of those public places going forward, and that's last 10 years. But sort of have to keep reminding ourselves it's not just expanding. It has to be a rationale behind it.
Just going to add that the plan change does see the incorporation of more socialisation and pedestrian places being created within Carter's Flat to make it more pedestrian focused than it is now. So that could well be the purpose of extending it through that area, because those would be the kind of road reserves that would come under our control, and hence need to have that extended to them.
Thanks, Roger. Monty?
Yeah, just following Susan's comments, Mika, can you explain two things to us? One, what's the status quo, the default position in public places if there's not an alcohol ban? So that's first question. And two, what's the public policy rationale for the ban areas being centred around the CBD?
Yeah.
Tell us those two things, it'll help focus our thinking.
So the default, so this policy is almost more for the police than for council. So they are the ones who actually implement it. It gives the police the power to stop someone, and basically the first step is getting them to dispose of their drink if they have an open container and they causing issues. So the default would be that the police can't do anything about that. If you're walking down the street with an opened container, Occam's razor, it's pretty obvious what you're doing there. The police, like if you're causing trouble, police can't do anything about that.
So I guess the other side of this, and I've seen this quite, I'm going to say frequently, because it does happen, but when we do bring large events to Cambridge, often we have a number of people wanting to celebrate afterwards at the end of their event. And we have seen from time to time large groups descending into the CBD where they are unable to access a establishment, and so they choose to celebrate on the streets instead. And so I've experienced this personally with a number of events over the years. So this gives the police power to move these groups on and to ensure the public safety of people.
But the default position is that in urban Cambridge, I can sit out on the street drinking, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and the police can't do anything about that.
Correct.
Oh,
yeah. And we haven't seen problems there before, so that's why we don't include those areas.
That's really helpful to understand that rationale, and thank you for your your experiences and what you've seen, Liz. It's kind of gives meaning to this, I suppose. Is it really only to open vessels though, or is it anything? Is this prohibition only connected to open vessels? So arguably, this person lives here on Thompson Street. They've had friends over for a barbecue. They park on the road, and technically when they're leaving their car with their bottle of wine, are they in breach?
Technically, yes. So it only applies to open vessels, and it also applies to if you're drinking in a car in an alcohol ban area. But the police have emphasised over and over, and it is actually in the report that you have previously seen around the justification of keeping the bylaw, that they have steps that they step through. So, if you're sitting in the park and you're having your drink with your small kids at a picnic, they're not necessarily going to pull you up on that. It is just to give them the power, if there is a nuisance being caused, to do something about it.
Okay. Yeah, I feel much more comfortable understanding that. And my apologies for not having read that somewhere.
All right, thanks, Mika. Carry on.
So Carter's Flat, just want to wrap up that issue. Is Carter's Flat, with the rationale of sort of trying to future-proof Cambridge for the next 10 years, a place that you want to include in the permanent alcohol ban areas?
Anyone? Yes. Yep, I think that's what we've agreed. Yep.
Yep.
Follow the blue line.
Excellent.
Leamington.
Leamington. So you can see, I'll just change the map. The current area. Zoe, could you please help me? Yeah, the current area is there. This is quite a large area. The reasoning being, again, that you're following the roads to make it an easy indication of you are now in the ban, you are now outside, and to capture the parks and the sort of shopping area there. Yeah, no suggestions for any change here. Any feedback on that?
Yeah, I've got one question. At the top, where it comes off the bridge, does it include the little car park that's up there for that reserve, or does it just follow the road?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
It doesn't show that though, Mika. It's on the other side of the road, or is it on the previous map?
No, on the top of the Leamington map,
No, it doesn't show.
it's got the, it's just a little bit ambiguous. I don't know if I can't really see the car park. But
Yeah,
if
it would
does
probably,
include the car park.
Through Madam Chair, if you have a look on your Cambridge map, you'll see it goes across the bridge and goes down Cook Street. There's a little bit on your Cambridge map that actually covers it.
yeah. So, yeah.
All right, if you're comfortable, if you're confident that it's included, that's great. Thank
You can
you.
definitely
So-
double check that for
Yeah,
you.
double check
I'm
it.
pretty sure there is a little sign on the car park sign.
So just on the other side of the car park are reserves, aren't we trying to, isn't this where we're trying to stop this? So in theory, you could just jump over that fence.
Should we cover that when we come to reserves?
Oh, okay, separate, okay.
Yeah, sorry, it's just easier to do it that way.
Let's just make sure those areas are included, any public reserves. Yep. I don't have any other changes for Leamington. I feel like we have included everything. Is everyone happy with that? Okay, should we move to Te Pahu?
Excellent. So the next couple of places, it's not necessary, there's no recommendations to include a permanent alcohol ban area. It's just for, fullness. So make sure we've considered everything. You guys might have some intel that we haven't come across.
Okay, we'll go through them quickly. So anything for Te Pahu? Anything for Rukahia? Nahanapodi? Parongia? Claire, you're good? Bruce?
We talked about it at the Pirongia Ward Committee meeting. Yeah, Mika came along and led quite a good discussion on it. I think in the end, we decided that we wouldn't, we did consider a couple of the reserves, but there haven't been any major complaints or anything. So I think the consensus was we'd just leave it at this time.
Yeah, it wasn't anything firm. And when we cover reserves, we'll sort of talk about, because it was mainly reserves that we talked about there as well. Yeah, and sorry, I should also probably add that, apart from putting this out for the community to have their say, it also needs to go through another step because it is a bylaw. So it is going to be tested to see if this is a reasonable infringement on people's rights and freedoms. So there is another catch as well.
Thanks for that. Okay, we're up to Ohalpo. I'm happy with that. Karapiro. Wilma's Landing.
So now we start getting into our reserve areas. I want to draw particular attention to Bulmer's Landing, Arapuni Landing. There is a little caveat with this, is just the very bottom of that image. There's a little jutty outy bit of land. That is actually Waikoko Reserve, and it's co-managed by Council in Ngā Pae Whenua. So that is not, we're set for a meeting with Ngā Pae Whenua on the 26th of February. So just sort of ignore that bit currently. But the rest of Bulmer's Landing, this has come up with, and Arapuni Landing, sorry, from the parks team. They do have a lot of issues in this area with people drinking at night. You're leaving burnt out cars, leaving rubbish. Again, you can sort of, when you find lots of glass bottles with alcohol labels on them, you can probably see what's happened there. So this is the only real reserve as such that is outright suggested. I'm happy to take your feedback on other reserves in a moment, but we're suggesting a permanent alcohol ban from 8 p.m. till 8 a.m. So not the whole time. If you want to sit there in the summer sunshine, you can. The 8 to 8 is an easy time frame to understand, and keeping it the same all year round, again, is just for ease of use, essentially. Any thoughts on including Bulmer's and Arapuni Landing?
Sounds good to me. Right into it. The time frame sounds good too, and that coupled with what we've done with the road now gives police actual power to do something, because that's a real problem area. So I'm into it.
Excellent. Thanks, everyone. I think we've got consensus on that.
I mean, can I just ask, what do our neighbours do on the other side of the river? Do you know, with that reserve of the other side?
Great question. I can find that out for you.
Everyone's happy with that? Okay.
Okay, so
anything else you need from us?
Yeah, sorry, just a couple of district-wide things, recommendations. So filling out with reserves, nothing, the parks team haven't necessarily recommended including a district-wide ban. Again, it sort of bumps up against that. You need lots of evidence to support it. It'll be quite tricky with some of the reserves, but if you have any feedback on possibly any other of those areas, please let me know. But district-wide, proposing for playgrounds. So using the definition, the area within any fenced public playground or play area, or within 5 meters of any unfenced public playground or play area. So that's the same definition as what was used in the dog bylaw. And that hopefully, along with the 8 till 8 p.m., 8 a.m. timeframe for a permanent alcohol ban, still allows you to use those barbecue areas that might be next to a playground. But if you're in the playground with your drink, watching your children after 8, yeah.
Okay, look, that sounds good. I'm just wondering about some of our, where do scenic reserves fall, like Mangakawa, for example? Where does that fall at the moment?
There were a couple suggestions about that. Currently, you can drink. Yeah, there's no ban, but yeah, it's just where council boundaries are, where the public places are, is a bit funny for some of those to police.
I understand that, but I feel that one in particular has caused such angst amongst the community for such a long time that they would welcome an 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. Alcohol ban time. So if that particular one I would quite like to include if possible.
Yeah, I'd have to look at what evidence there.
Oh, there's plenty of that.
But yeah, I believe there were maybe some bollards placed there, which resolved a few issues.
Yes, this again to strengthen, I suppose, the ongoing. But there's a lot of graffiti up there, but there's also a lot of interesting night activity, and I think that, yeah, I suspect the residents would be very keen to see this. Are there any other reserves that we see similar issues across the district?
Not reserves, but for skate parks, I'd just like to just have an alcohol banned. What? Because you don't need to have alcohol at the skate park, and some of that trouble is going to happen during the day anyway at the skate parks because there's just a complete blanket ban on skate parks. I think that would be much better than 8 to 8.
Yeah, so just for those online, also proposed to include skate parks from the 8 p.m. till 8 a.m. and the skate park is within 5 meters of the skate park. So I guess you're saying just 24/7? You could argue that with playgrounds as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about playgrounds, but I just think that the type of people that congregate at the skate parks are probably not the ones that are going to be at the playgrounds. And I think it might just be easier for the skate parks to be a blanket ban on alcohol.
Would it be reasonable? Would we be able to justify saying the types of people that congregate?
Or just young adults and just people with, you know, bottles of booze and stuff like that. If you've got a group of teenagers down there with a couple of bottles of beer and bits and pieces like that, like it's a magnet, could be a magnet for things to go wrong. And if the police need to come down there, then if they see booze, then well, that's obvious they can deal with it because you're not supposed to have booze at skate parks.
Thanks, Marcus. Mike.
Yeah, through the chair, just to back up Marcus's comments, but your comment too around what's the difference, I guess, between a playground and a skate park. But a playground is often more family environment, whereas a skate park is more individuals or mates or traditionally not a whole family go down to picnic or whatever at a skate park. So hey, I totally support what you're saying. I think it just makes sense. And even under health and safety, they're all made of concrete, you know, so there's that whole smashing and that sort of thing. So I'm sure you can find a couple of reasons.
And yeah, just on that, so if we can include the pump track with the skate park in Cambridge, because they are really just one larger facility.
Just the reserve one's kind of worrying me because we're chasing down the reserves that have been a bit problematic. Put a prohibition, an alcohol ban on them. You're just pushing people to other reserves and we'll end up just chasing our tail for every 10 years, adding this reserve and this reserve. So your question of, is it reasonable to have an alcohol ban on a reserve? I kind of think it probably is, especially with the time limit. And do we really want people boozing up on any reserves past 8 p.m? Not really. You should be in licensed premises or private residences. It's like, I don't know, what do others think? I'm not into big boozy parties in our reserves.
But you're also prohibiting anyone just having a nice glass of wine or beer, and that's what we don't want to do. We don't want to be, you know, too overly kind of.
But the police aren't going to come to you drinking a nice glass of wine. It's more to give the police the tools to go, oh, hang on, there's issues here. We can go in. I mean, if I go and have a glass of wine or a beer in a park, they're not going to come and arrest me because I'm just sitting there doing nothing. But
some people take on sort of citizen responsibilities, and if there's a rule, there's a rule. So I guess you just want to be really careful about what we're creating here. Phil.
Thanks for that, and I'd like to see if we're looking at reserves, Ngā Roto, Wairoto, part of that, especially if now you're getting rid of Boomers Landing as a place for people to congregate, get together, and I know that there've been assaults there, and you know there's road rage going on down there and that sort of thing. So where the burnouts are. So yeah, if you're looking at events, and that raises the other question, which is one about, so what number of events do we apply to this in regards to saying, well, that's a place that is of interest of us now and should be banned. Are there 1 or 2 events a year? What type of event? I'm talking police events here. before it comes to us. And the other point I wanted to make is, of course, that those are significant sites for Māori. And I'd want those particularly protected as opposed to, some that are reserves.
Thank you, Bill. Lou?
Having listened to the discussion, there's one thing I'd like to raise is that the cemeteries, you've put it in 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. or, in the morning, or 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Cemeteries are a place of remembrance for a lot of people, and it has a significance. And I think an alcohol ban should be there at all times. Traditionally, you don't have people going there and commemorating with alcohol. I think all cemeteries should be a place where alcohol is completely banned, and it allows police to arrive if something gets out of hand. We've had troubles out there at Te Amutu Cemetery with things being stolen and people congregating at times there. Just wonder whether that's worth consideration.
Any thoughts on moving to 24/7 on that for cemeteries? Or is everyone happy with the 8 p.m. to 8 a.m.?
Sorry, just to fill in, the gate's always closed at 8 a.m. anyway, or, 8 p.m. So there was always closed gates, but I'm thinking of people that go up there and congregate at the far end and around, and I've had many conversations walking through there with staff.
During the day is what you're concerned
they just
about?
Congregate up under the tree or around. That's Te Amutu Cemetery.
So I guess we just want to have a look and see what events we might have had, what issues that we've had with Te Amutu Cemetery to instigate a 24/7. Could you follow that up perhaps with the enforcement team? Thanks, Mika. Mike.
I just want clarity where we end up with the reserves, because I do not support a blanket, just a ban on them. I mean,
with the reserves, because it's quite a complex thing, I think we'd have to come back with a couple of maps and maybe a bit more of a definition, because also the reserves are classed differently. So there'll be a bit more work going into that. If that is something worth investigating, we can definitely go back and have a closer look and then come present something again.
no, that'd be good. And hey, I support the Mangakawa statements, but do we actually own totally that reserve? Things like that, I'm not sure.
I believe we have the car park, but I could be wrong.
Look, and and if we don't, there may be support to provide a part or full ban anyway. But I mean, for me, I'm only just looking at the 8 p.m. It's the evening activity that seems to frustrate the residents. So that would be the only control that I was looking for.
So we'll come back.
Come back to that
with
one.
some information on the cemeteries for possibly 24/7 and reserves in general. That is pretty much everything from me. Any other thoughts? No.
Okay, everyone okay? Yep. No other comments?
No, good.
Great, thank you. It was great. Okay, we are going to stop the live streaming now. We are ahead of schedule, so I was keen just to make a couple of little changes to our workshop day. If everyone's in agreement, we do have Stephen Finlay available now to do the